Today, I want to talk about a team that holds a special place in the hearts of many Carolinians, such as myself, but also breaks their hearts over and over and over again. Have you guessed it yet? The team is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, if you're from North Carolina, or even just a casual NBA fan, you've probably asked the same question I have over the years. What happened to the Hornets? How did a team with such a strong fan base, a unique brand, and one of the most iconic players as an owner become one of the most disappointing franchises and hilarious franchises in the league? From ownership fumbles to identity crisis, let's get into it. I want to talk about the George Shen era. In 1988, y'all know we got our first team, my first NBA team, the original Hornets. And man, when I tell you, they were loved. The city was on fire, man. They brought a certain type of energy, style, and the teal and purple color scheme, man. It had the whole NBA paying attention. Like, the drip was so hard, folk who didn't even stay in Charlotte was getting their merch because it was just that drippy, man. They loved the colors, like the Hornets. It was just unique, you know what I'm saying? The Charlotte Coliseum where they played was so lit. It stayed sold out, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just a basketball, it was a cultural moment. And I'm not sure if y'all saw the movie Joanna Man, but it was filmed at the Charlotte Coliseum. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if y'all know about that type of history, man, but it was just lit like that. Like, they had the city on fire. They had something when they got Muggsy Bogues, Larry Johnson, and Alonzo Mourning, right? The Hornets weren't just entertaining, man. They were trying to build something real. But business got in the way of that. So the original owner, like I said, George Shen, went from a local hero to one of the most disliked figures in Charlotte sports history. I mean, like, on the surface, like, he had some questionable front office decisions, but like, he really pushed fans away with like his, off the court scandals and how he just handled the community. Like, people just stopped really trusting him because it's just like, bro, you supposed to be doing right by the team and building a contender, but he was doing everything but that. It was all types of allegations and lawsuits and all types of stuff that he had going on. And then when it came to as dope as the city was and riding with him, this man would not build a new arena unless he had public money. Ain't that crazy? Just because the fans wouldn't chip in, which Charlotte wasn't like the mecca for like money or anything like that. It was still a growing city. He was like, you know what? Cool. All these allegations, man, lawsuits, and y'all don't want to build no new arena with y'all money. Not his money, y'all money, I'm out. In 2002, man, he decided to just move the New Orleans, to move the team to New Orleans. And the thing was, bro, those players that I named, Muggsy was one who stayed, but Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, just off of some BS, he didn't even re-sign them. He let them walk. And y'all know how cold Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning was. They was like staples with the Hornets. Because fans stopped trusting, they stopped showing up to the arena. So there was just nothing but like poor market support, you know what I mean? And because of his ego and scandal, he just lost all respect and said, all right, let me go ahead and move the team to New Orleans, man. And that was literally the first fracture that just tore the Hornets up, and the city was never really the same. The second chapter is what I like to call the Bobcats era that I want to talk about. So let's fast forward to about 2004. Right around 2004, I'm like in elementary, okay? So the NBA decided they wanted to bring the team back to Charlotte. But it wasn't the Hornets. Nope. We got the Charlotte Bobcats. Now look, I get it. It was a fresh start, but from the jump, the Bobcats felt like some type of weird science experiment. You know what I mean? Like, the name didn't resonate, the branding felt forced, and worst of all, the product on the court was so uninspiring. Now, I'm not sure if y'all necessarily know who owned them at that time, but that would be Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson literally was like the owner of BET. So he had like so much motion going on, but he wasn't really involved in sports like that. So anybody that he had in charge, including himself, just didn't know what to do. And so early on, the Bobcats never truly had like a face of the franchise. I'm talking about they done sat up here and drafted players who never lived up to the hype, like Adam Morrison. I know y'all remember Adam Morrison, the one who went to Gonzaga. He was picked like 3rd overall in 06, man, ahead of players like Brandon Roy, Rudy Gay. And I ain't trying to knock, you know what I'm saying, Adam Morrison, but it's just like, it just showed how lost the front office was. You know what I'm saying? It was just bad, man. And even like the trades that they made, like it just seemed like desperate move after desperate move after desperate move, just trying to be relevant, man, instead of actually building something that was sustainable. All right. Now, I think they made the playoffs maybe one time in like 2010, and they got swept. I mean, like really, really swept. Like it wasn't close. The patience was just gone, man. There was no spirit like folk had for the Hornets. There was no drip, them orange jerseys. It just was not it. And let's go ahead and take it over to chapter 3, which is what I like to call the Michael Jordan era. You know, the GOAT, but the frog in the front office, as I like to call him. Let's talk about the man who was supposed to change everything. When Bob Johnson, right, decided he was going to start selling stuff from BET to the Bobcats, he didn't want to be involved no more, he decided to sell him to Michael Jordan. Now, this was around 2010, and it was supposed to be the rebirth. Now, everybody knows how Michael Jordan is the GOAT of the NBA and all of these different things, but he's just different to people in North Carolina because, of course, you know, he was a Tar Heel and grew up and everything in North Carolina. So it's just like, yo, the greatest player of all time was about to be running the Hornets in his home state? Bruh, this finna be a movie. But instead of it being an action-packed movie, it turned into a horror movie real fast, okay? But here's the truth. Michael Jordan, the player, and Michael Jordan, the executive, are two very different people. I'm saying this man made mistake after mistake after mistake, especially in the draft. Bismack Biyombo, bro, you talking about sick? That's who you chose? So 2012, we had these different players. I'm like, all right, bro, this is the one. We missed with Biyombo, we can't miss again. And who does this man draft? Michael Kidd Gilchrist at number 2, bro. Over Damian Lillard. I could not believe it. I'm just like, bro, what are you thinking? 2013, he skipped over Giannis. The only thing that I could think about is Kemba Walker was going just off from MJ's tenure, man. Like, never advanced past the first round, you know what I'm saying? Never really had consistency. But, and then the thing is, when he was due for a contract, Mike can't give him no supermax. They just let him walk. We ain't get nothing in return. Wasn't no trade, wasn't no nothing. So, MJ's legacy as a player, untouchable. But his ownership of the Hornets, man, is one of the major reasons the team has struggled for decades. And that's why I say he ain't the GOAT. He the frog of the front office, because all he did was hop around, but never did what he was supposed to do. And with that, I'm going to send it over to my man Rev to take it.
Nothing could prepare Charlotte for what was coming next. A wild card, 6'7" guard, polarized, from Chino Hills, LaMelo Ball, was on the Charlotte Hornets radar in the 2020 draft. No one would have thought just 2 years prior, with a public feud between LaVar Ball and Michael Jordan, this was anything possible. The Big Baller brand burst onto the scene back in 2017. The story of three brothers and their father grinding from nothing out of the West Coast and taking over high school AAU circuits all across America. And when they went to Lithuania, the world, was something out of a storybook. It sounded like it was written in a script of a Slam magazine. Now, the youngest of all three of the Ball brothers, LaMelo, had an opportunity to be drafted by the Charlotte Hornets. Needless to say, draft night 2020, when the Minnesota Timberwolves took Anthony Edwards and the Golden State Warriors took James Wiseman, respectively, it was Charlotte's turn to make a decision. And as critical as I have been of the Charlotte Hornets and some of their decisions, I gotta take my hat off to Michael Jordan and Mitch Kupchak for silencing the noise and taking the best talent available. Although LaMelo was a polarizing figure at the time, what he did in Australia, what he did in his high school career at 6'7" now, bringing a guy like that into the franchise, not only could give the city something to look forward to on the court, but it could give them a superstar, the first superstar since Cam Newton, to really change the way the sports is being viewed and played in Charlotte. When LaMelo finally made it into the building, there were many reports that came out that a lot of the media and reality TV show narratives that were behind LaMelo Ball were inaccurate and not correct. Mitch Kupchak and head coach at the time, James Borrego, both went on record saying that they met with LaMelo the night that he got drafted, well, the next night when he came in. And the first thing that LaMelo asked him was, where was the gym? Even though LaMelo had all the prospect talent that you want from a number one talent or a number two talent, he didn't hit the ground running. During that preseason that year, he struggled. And the first game of the year against the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland, his first outing was a donut hole with some of the bad thoughts around the Ball family and some of the sour taste that was left in NBA fans' mouth from Lonzo's first go-around in LA. A lot of fans were already chalking it up to LaMelo potentially being a bust. By game 3, that had all changed. From game 3 to game 20, LaMelo was on a trajectory that led him to the Rookie of the Year, and if he would have stayed healthy in the middle of that rookie season, he would have had a better rookie season than Luka Doncic per statistics. You would think, after this early success in a young career, of a Rookie of the Year, his first year, a play-in, an all-star appearance, his second year, a play-in, you would think that LaMelo's young trajectory would be that of an all-star perennially, an all-NBA career perennially, and a future Hall of Fame. But something happened in the midst of that. Something derailed all of those plans and hopes that the Charlotte Hornets had at the time. Injuries. Not only was it injuries, the front office unwillingness to put the necessary pieces around LaMelo. Ever since LaMelo made it to Charlotte, he was surrounded by the forgottens of the NBA. The biggest free agent acquisition as he came in was a Gordon Hayward, who had not made an all-star in 7 years. And since a tragic injury in Boston that happened earlier was never really the same after his leg injury. Because of money being bogged down in bad contracts that no one else was offering in the NBA, it seemed like the Charlotte Hornets were content on a play-in appearance or a rebuild year after year. Year after year, the promise of what LaMelo could be started to sound like what he would never be. It was a sad state of affairs in Charlotte. 2 years ago, Michael Jordan sells the team. When he sells the team, it was the end of an era that was marred in what could have been. But it also showed a glimpse of hope. A 6'9" sniper, shooting guard out of Alabama, By way of Antioch, Tennessee, Brandon Miller stood to be the best teammate drafted that could help LaMelo carry some of the load and get over the hump. The first move that the new owners that bought the team from Michael Jordan, Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnell, did when coming into the building was draft Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller showed great promise his rookie year. He showed that he was a lot more athletic than a lot of scouts gave him credit for. He also showed that his three-point shot was translatable on the NBA level, but he too fell marred by the tragedy of Charlotte, which is injury. The once high-flying Miles Bridges, who in LaMelo's second year really came into his own and looked like, at times, the best player on the team and a borderline all-star, also succumbed to things that kept him off of the court. Now, in this new regime, under new leadership at head coach Charles Lee and vice president of operations Jeff Peterson, we're finally starting to see the glimpse of the vision that the Charlotte Hornets say they want to build. This year, after what many consider to be a whiff on last year's lottery pick and Tijan Salon at number 6 overall, the Charlotte Hornets made a conscientious decision not to draft at number 4 in the lottery, the best player available, but to go for something they're describing as culture and character. Knueppel, a 6'5" shooting guard out of Duke, who was the second man behind number 1 draft pick Cooper Flagg of Duke, is said to be a guy that's ready to go right now, with a lower ceiling, but what they describe as a high floor. The Charlotte Hornets are hoping that Knueppel's maturity and, quote, character can be enough to insert one day in between LaMelo and Brandon Miller in the starting lineup as an even keel piece that glues everything together. The Charlotte Hornets weren't done with the character and the player readiness and development when they drafted or traded further into the first round to take Liam McKinley out of UConn, a 6'7" small forward that was once rated the number 1 shooter coming out of high school the year prior. Before Liam McKinley got injured early in the season, he was showing flashes of a top 10 draft pick. He even scored 38 points against Creighton, where he went nuclear in the first and second halves. They kept on with this theme of character, as they call it, when they drafted Sion James, Knueppel's teammate at Duke. Sion James is known as a defensive specialist that makes it hard for any guard bringing the ball up the floor as an unguarded defender, and a three-point marksman that took his percentages from 28% at Tulane to 39% his last year at Duke. Last but not least, the 4-time Big East Player of the Year, Ryan Kalkbrenner, is a verticality problem on the college level. The Charlotte Hornets are hoping with the departure of Mark Williams that Ryan Kalkbrenner can develop into a semblance of what he was in college. If he can do this and muster a strong front line of defense when Melo and Brandon Miller are on the court and they're beat to the rack, they're hoping that their defensive numbers can take a jump when it comes to rim defense. The Charlotte Hornets were not just done in the draft with this change in culture. We saw them make a blockbuster trade by the Charlotte Hornets standards for a player of the likes of Colin Sexton when they sent Yusuf Nurkic to Utah and received back from the Utah Jazz 2 second-round draft picks and Colin Sexton. Finally shoring up the backup point guard position and injecting into the Charlotte Hornets lineup attitude, injury, and a young boy they call Sexton. They weren't done there when they went out and they got Spencer Dinwiddie and Matt Connington from the Milwaukee Bucks. The Lithouse has been calling for the last 5 years for respectable NBA players to put alongside LaMelo Ball. Last year, 5 G League players, Yeah, I stuttered when I said it because it's unbelievable. 5 G League players started for the Charlotte Hornets roster. This is unacceptable. It seems like Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee are focused on building an actual NBA roster. Even though we are excited about all the moves that the Charlotte Hornets have made, and we're cautiously optimistic after hearing about the past that Sean told us about earlier, we understand that the food is not finished. And if Charlotte wants to take control of the East and be a real young contender, it's more food on their plate. There are a lot of tradable pieces, and out of respect for some of these players, I'm not gonna say their names. But even if you're not gonna consider the players that the Charlotte Hornets can actually trade and get some more veteran pieces that can contribute right now to this team, the Charlotte Hornets over the next over the next 6 years, have over 14 second-round draft picks. Will Jeff Peterson and ownership decide to stay pat and play it safe? Or is now the time to finally put a team around LaMelo Ball that can help you properly gauge not what could have been, not what would have been, but what should be?